Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Celtic Way's morning briefing. It is a new month, Monday, the 2nd of June. My name is Ryan McGinley at the Ryan McGinley. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Tony Haggerty at ahaggerty10 on the X handle. Tony, how are you doing this morning?
I'm better because there's a touch of getting the band back together on a morning briefing. We're usually on during the football matches. So, good start to the week, Ryan. Good to be on with yourself. Looking forward to more Celtic chat.
Yeah, absolutely. There's still plenty to talk about despite Celtic not played in over a week or so. I think we're getting through it just slowly but surely. We're getting through this off season. But before we get started and talk about today's video, I'd like to say a big thanks to our sponsors who will be the sponsors for us or with us until the end of the 25-26 season. Seneca Medical Group, who are the number one hair transplantation clinic in the UK. All you need to do is look up Seneca on Google and get involved, and we thank them for sponsoring our video today. Now, Tony, first of all, I just want to ask you before we get into talking about players that are linked with the club, maybe players that are away from the club on loan at the moment. How are you doing a week removed from Celtic at the moment?
Listen, it never really stops, does it? But you do feel it. I always feel that this is the hardest 2 weeks, Ryan, last week and this week, because most players and managers and agents are on holiday, and they like their downtime. So it's difficult to get a hold of people, isn't it? But as you say, we don't sleep, we don't stop. We're still in and around everything that's happening, and anything happening news-wise with Celtic will be all over it. But yeah, everybody deserves a holiday. I get that, and the idea of a holiday is great when the football season's finished. But about 3 or 4 days into it, you are climbing the walls, aren't you? You need your fix, and but the likes of yourself, myself, and John, who work on the Celtic Way, we're always open for business, aren't we, Ryan? Basically, we're never really shut off, and at all times. So yeah, we try and keep our hand in our eyes and our ears open and about stuff that's happening with Celtic. But yeah, I'd say the this couple of weeks are always difficult, but there's always something happening. There's never nothing happening, if you get what I mean. But yeah, it kind of slows down a wee bit, doesn't it? This couple of weeks.
It certainly does, yeah, but you get used to it. I think or you get used to not having football because you know that you've got the pre-season coming up. Celtic, as we reported last week on the Celtic Way, they've got a really busy pre-season schedule. They'll have
Yeah.
warm training camps. They'll have friendlies against the likes of Cork, higher level opposition in terms of Newcastle, Como, and Ajax to name but a few. So they'll be ready for those Champions League qualifiers when they come in the middle of August. But in preparation for the new season, it seems as if Celtic are getting linked with signings already. That was the story that was doing the rounds. I think it was Saturday night broke that Celtic were interested in the services of 19-year-old Peterborough left back / midfielder Harley Mills. He has made, I think it was something like 19 appearances, 26 appearances in all competitions for both Peterborough United and Enfield Town. He was playing in the National League South and for the first half of the season before making his sort of breakthrough for Peterborough in the second half of the season, making 14 appearances for Peterborough and scoring 2 goals in the process. A 19-year-old English fullback. Tony, what would you make of that link?
I think, like everything else, if there's a young talent and they're available and at a price that is affordable and accessible to Celtic, then they should be all over it. They should be looking at it. I don't think there's any harm in monitoring these guys and keeping tabs on their progress. The caveat to that is that he would be coming in as cover for Kieran Tierney, wouldn't he? That's the kind of thinking behind it. So is that the case that decisions been made with Greg Taylor? So there's, I think, a lot of things that to happen before Harley Mills becomes a Celtic player, if that eventuality does, turn out to be true. But yeah, I'm all for. You know what I'm like, Ryan. It is the season where Celtic are going to be linked with all and sundry, aren't they? And so until Celtic officially announce something, I always kind of read between the lines and try and join the dots, connect those lines, and see, is this something that's got legs for a start? Does it make sense? Is it viable? And at the minute, suppose you would say, yeah, it ticks a lot of boxes, but I think a few things have to happen before Harley Mills would become a Celtic player. And also as well, if there's other teams involved, you don't know how much of this is maybe agents trying to flush out other clubs, etc., etc.
Yeah, absolutely. The reason that I brought up the fact that he was a midfielder as well is I think that's pretty important to the player that comes in to replace Greg Taylor. If you've got somebody that's quite adept and stepping into the middle and providing that overload as an inverted fullback, I think a player's more likely to be able to do that if he does have a tendency to play in the middle as well as out on the left as a left back. Do you think that's a good idea for Celtic to be replacing Greg Taylor potentially with a player that can play in that midfield role, albeit stationed out on the left, but he can move in and overload when required?
I think Celtic will be looking at someone who can play that inverted role, because since Greg Taylor transitioned into that inverted role when Ange Postecoglou came in, he's did it with varying degrees of success, hasn't he? And I think Celtic have realised the benefit of that. I think in terms of Kieran Tierney is just a traditional left wing back, isn't he? Who could invert if needed. He's a talented boy. But I think Brendan Rodgers just likes to play with a traditional left wing back, doesn't he? Kieran Tierney galloped forward during Brendan Rodgers' first spell. But I think it's not a bad idea to be looking at somebody who's versatile that way and can adapt and can play that role. And I guess that's why that link with Harley Mills has come, because Celtic will be looking at someone like that in the Taylor mould if Taylor is to eventually leave the club, which we're still waiting on. I think he was given his answer to PAOK over the weekend, wasn't he? Because they've made him an offer, I believe. So we shall see what transpires from that. But I think that could be the thinking, that they got a lot of joy with Taylor playing in that inverted role. So the person coming in as backup to Tierney, it would probably be, fail safe for Celtic as well. Can you play left back, but can you also invert? Can you be that kind of left back stroke midfielder if required?
Yeah. He's made his breakthrough at Peterborough, Harley Mills, but if you look back on his career, he was born in Birmingham and he came through the Aston Villa academy. Got sort of similar to Viljami Sinisalo. I know Sinisalo had a couple of first team appearances for a team in Finland prior to his move to Aston Villa, but it seems as if Celtic are shopping in that area, looking at that academy in particular. They were linked with Louis Barry as well, who also had a fruitful period at Peterborough too. So they're clearly looking in the same places. Maybe this is down to Paul Tisdale, some of the scouts as well. They're particularly looking at a team like Peterborough United. They've been in and around. I remember Celtic were also linked with Ivan Toney as well a few years ago. So they're clearly a team that develop good players, bring them through, and then sell them on for profit. So it seems like a pretty good standard that Peterborough have got. I believe they won the equivalent of the Challenge Cup down south at Wembley. I think they've actually won it more than any other English team, so they're pretty successful. Currently a League One side, but looking to make inroads to the Championship. But it looks like an interesting player to be linked with, and certainly it'll be one of many left backs to be linked to the club. I just want to ask your personal hunch on the situation. Do you believe that Greg Taylor has played his last game for the club and that he will be moving to pastures now this summer?
I think all the kind of indicators are that will be the case. I think it's just someone coming up with the right package for Greg Taylor. I think maybe he just wants to try somewhere different, because it's dragged on for long enough. I know the manager, Brendan Rodgers, has said the door's still open, unless there's a very late 11th hour change of heart. I would see a parting of the ways this summer, Ryan, because I think Greg Taylor's just wanting to see what's out there, and maybe he wants to see further his own education and experience and his learning by playing in a different league. The very nature of his Instagram quote, "Lived it, loved it." I think a lot of people were reading into that what they will, but it seems to be that's maybe the case, that Greg Taylor has played his last game. And in terms of Harley Mills, that Peterborough game that you were talking about, they beat Chris Davis's Birmingham in that final at Wembley. So, yeah, I believe. I mean, I think the boys got a bit of a pedigree. I think just Celtic are doing their due diligence in these players, aren't they? And see what happens. But I'm always very sceptical and weary of kind of links very early, especially when some other club have made an offer and they're coming in, and I always think that they're maybe playing Celtic off. I think it's Fulham's the other club that are in, isn't it? £1 million off, I believe, yes. So I'm always wary of Celtic getting involved in that kind of thing as well. If Celtic want the player, go out and sign them. If they don't, then I'm sure there's a whole list of other targets that are there, but we shall see in the fullness of time.
Yeah, certainly one to keep an eye on in the weeks and months ahead. Hopefully weeks rather than months, because Celtic will need some backup to that Kieran Tierney position. Kieran Tierney comes back to the club in a couple of weeks. I think there was a couple of pictures getting shared about that he was in and around Glasgow last week, so it seems as if we're getting closer and closer to the grand return of Kieran Tierney. From a grand return to talking about a grand final, Marco Tilio won the grand final for Melbourne FC against their big rivals, Melbourne Victory, over the weekend. It's another really good result for a player that's doing really well out on loan at Melbourne City. He's still got 2 or 3 years left on his Celtic deal. He's doing his chances no harm, but Tony, is he one of these players that maybe the manager's already made his mind up on him, and he might be performing in order for his next move rather than a chance back at Celtic?
Well, again, he's going to come back to Celtic, isn't he? And lots of people had written Kuhn off at this stage last season.
Very true.
And then Kuhn went on to have an absolute stormer from pre-season onwards, and in the pre-season football matches against Manchester City and Chelsea, and people said, can he replicate that? Ross County away on a Wednesday night, which he did. So Marco Till is very much a forgotten man, but he can only do what he can do at the level that he's playing at. And he's been a bit of a standout since he's got to Melbourne City. And, Rodgers has persevered with Yang to a degree. Do you persevere with Marco Till? Do you give him a chance and say, okay, come home, let's see what you got, and then take it from there? I would persevere with him, because the guy's own personal confidence and personal stock is high. He'll be determined to try and make it at Celtic. And I think you've got to see what he can offer, Ryan. Bring him home. Well, bring him back to Celtic, because he's home in Australia, obviously. But and then see what's what. See what happens. See how he shapes up over the pre-season training. Give him the pre-season games and let him see, because he'll feed off that. He's won the grand final. That's the highest accolade in Australian club football.
Yep.
So bring that confidence back to Celtic. Show Brendan Rodgers and show the Celtic supporters why you want to be part of this moving forward. And if he does, then it's a win-win, because we've all seen his highlights reel. I think there's a player there somewhere, Ryan, but whether that's at Celtic or not, then time will tell. But what a chance he's got now to come back to Celtic and say, right, I'm ready. He's been back home, as I say, and he has lived it and loved it, and come back with the biggest prize, the grand final prize. So transform that into your Celtic career, because you could book a place in that, or you could start to get valuable game time. Sorry, on you go.
It would be an added bonus if a player like Marco Tilio would come back and really hit the ground running, because I don't feel as if he's ever had that in his Celtic career, because if you remember back to 2023, there was a lot of excitement when Marco Tilio, I remember the buzz around him, despite playing in Australia, and Australia's maybe not the best level of football, but neither Scotland at the end of the day, not to talk down our league, but Australia's a developing, you would say, a developing nation in terms of football. They've had a couple of homegrown stars coming out of there. I know Aberdeen have signed a winger that's coming to Scotland in the summer, sort of a standout. They've had a couple of household names in there, sort of at the end of their career. But I think they're waiting on that one player to really break out in the European leagues, and who knows, that could be Marco Tilio. I just want to read out what he said after that grand final. It was a 1-0 victory for Melbourne City. Against Melbourne Victory. He said, I feel like I'm in a really good place. My future is obviously up in the air at the moment, so I'm unsure what is going to happen. It's always been about just playing well. I know when I'm playing well that people are always watching. I want to do everything I can to help Australia qualify for another World Cup. I took everything in from last camp, put myself in the position now where I feel I'm better for it. I just want to execute everything I know I can and put myself in the position to hopefully be in the squad and play. It's been 18 months since I actually stepped on the pitch for the national team, so I think it's at that time now where I put myself in a position to play well, get an opportunity to do well, and hopefully sort of cement a spot in there. Yeah, I had to mention that as well, that he was called up for the national team, the Australian national team, so he'll either put himself in the shop window or put himself in a good opportunity to come back to Celtic with more game time playing for I think it's Popovic's Australian national team, so a good opportunity for him.
Ryan, I think Celtic have got nothing to lose here. This is very much an unknown quantity,
especially in pre-season, Tony.
Yeah, in terms of his Celtic career, right? This is a guy who could shock you and turn out to be more than decent. And as I say, we've all watched his highlights reel. You mentioned there that there was excitement when he initially joined. It hasn't translated so far, but it's not too late. And as I say, his confidence levels will be through the roof. He'll be determined to come back and say, right, I'm coming back a winner in my own country. I'm going to show everybody, show the doubters, and Brendan Rodgers. Oh, he needs to convince one man. That's Brendan Rodgers, that he's got a future at Celtic. You know, and Celtic badly need a winger, don't they? Because Jota's out for a considerable length of time. Yeah, Pierce Gorman was saying that as well. And, you know, you never know. They just need that opportunity sometimes, players, don't they? And I think Marco Tilio should get that opportunity, because certainly over pre-season, Celtic have nothing to lose in that. And I think Brendan Rodgers will want to have a real look at him and say, right, fine. You know, I think he was sent out to Australia for a reason. Go back with your own folk, enjoy yourself, and you know, do what he did. Come back a grand final winner. He can. That's all he could have did, Ryan, when he went on his loan spell. So he's fulfilled that part of the bargain. Now he needs to fulfil the rest of it by becoming a permanent fixture in the Celtic team, if he can and if he wants it. If he wants it and he can back it up, then there's a right chance and an opportunity for him here.
The last player to go out on loan to a Melbourne side midway through his Celtic contract didn't do too badly on his return, and Tom Rogic. I remember he actually had an injury-ravaged spell at Melbourne Victory. He came back. There was an opportunity under Ronnie Dyer. I think he made his first start, or one of his first starts for Celtic, against Partick Thistle at Firhill, I seem to remember. Can't believe that was nearly 10 years ago now. And the rest is history for a player like that. All these players need is an opportunity to shine. You know, early on in the season, take their opportunity, and you never know what can happen. I look back at Tom Rogic's Celtic career, you know, with such fondness because of how well he did. So, yeah, hopefully Marco Tilio, if he does have a future at the club, he can take it with both hands and feet and really show in pre-season, potentially in that game against Cork when he comes back. If he's fit and ready, shows what you can do. See if you can get back into that and into the reckoning and see what happens over the course of the season. If not, and if his future lies elsewhere, then you want that resolved for the player as soon as possible, don't you, Tony?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, that's exactly what you want. And listen, I mean, you mentioned Tom Rogic there. It's, as you say, everybody has fondness for Tom Rogic. That's a player who gave you so many wonderful moments in his career at Celtic. And I tell you what, Marco Tilio can use that himself as an inspiration at this junction in his career to say his Celtic career can be resurrected because Tom Rogic did it. There's your perfect example and role model. And I'm not saying that Marco Tilio will reach the heights that Tom Rogic did, but he's got a wonderful kind of lens to look down and say, right, it happened for Tom. Let's go about it the right way and see if I can if I can spin the narrative, basically flip the narrative on me, because I think he believes that himself, that there's a player there, and lots of people believe in him as well. And so I think he's got a brilliant opportunity now, Ryan. He comes back to Celtic, and force your way into the manager's thinking during pre-season training. Make him say, "Okay, I'm going to give you your shot," and when you get that shot, as you say, you have to grasp it.
Got to say as well, I just read that somebody in the comments said that Daniel Arzani was playing for
Yeah,
Melbourne Victory, which is great to see. And I know he's not connected with Celtic anymore, but I'm delighted to see him back playing regular football as well, because that was a dreadful injury he suffered on his debut for Celtic. I
yeah,
actually watched one of his first games back. I believe he was playing in the Jockstein Cup, Celtic against Albion Rovers. That used to be a regular occurrence, that friendly between the two sides in sort of July, August times. I remember him playing in my hometown of Coatbridge. He played against Albion Rovers. He didn't really get much of an opportunity after then. I think he was on loan for 2 years, but with maybe an option to buy at the end of it, or there was dialogue between the clubs. But obviously, due to his injury, that never happened. So it's good to see him playing football, back playing regular football. Unfortunately, he was on the wrong side of it, and Marco Tilio got the win on the day. It was a 1-0 victory for Melbourne City against Melbourne Victory. I need to stop saying victory because it sounds as if I'm talking about Melbourne Victory. One of those unfortunate names for a team. We'll go on to another team that we'll be talking about. Odin Thigo Holm he's been sort of in and out of the LAFC team, but his side qualified for the Club World Cup, which is taking place, I think it's this month and next month. A big opportunity for him. He's not really had the game time that he would have wanted. I know that you spoke to him last month. You did a big interview with him, but a good opportunity for himself to show himself on a big stage.
Yeah, I think Odin Thigo Holm needs that, doesn't he? Again, another one who I think there's a nub of a footballer there, Ryan. Just needs now to grasp the nettle, and when he gets these opportunities playing at that level, he has to show that he can do it. I spoke to him, and he was very good. He was very candid about everything, but he said he still sees his future at Celtic. If he still sees his future at Celtic, then prove why you do have a future at Celtic. It's up to the player now, isn't it? I think the manager reckons there's a player there as well, but I think he alongside others needed to do more. So you've now got a stage where you can go and do more. And again, if opportunity knocks, then you've got to take it. It comes calling, and you've got to grasp that. And I think lots of Celtic supporters will be interested to see how he does in this tournament. And if they get the chance to watch the games, they'll tune in for that alone, just to see his development and see how he's coming along.
Yep, it's going to be an interesting one. I know there's been a bit of a revamp with the Club World Cup. Fact it's happening in the summer. A lot of controversy surrounding it as well, because there's a lot of games in a league season, and you get the Champions League, and then you've got the Club World Cup as well, and plus internationals too. Maybe a wider topic on how many games certain players are playing over the course of a season, and the need for a rest. I think Brendan Rodgers was talking about that during the season, on how he'll give players rests, sort of authorised breaks in the season. If there's heavy load for these sorts of players, he'll maybe give them a week or two off when possible, or when the fixture list allows them. What's your thoughts on that, Tony? Do you feel that the players are playing too many games? I know that this won't be the case for Celtic because they're not playing in the Club World Cup, but they still did play 50, 60 games last season. It's important for players to get a break as well as play a lot of games, isn't it?
Well, I think Celtic played 57 games last season, didn't they?
I
And
knew it was in and around that ballpark.
yeah, and if the season's stretched on a bit for some in terms of the World Club Cup, that's a lot of games, and that's a lot of time. R&R, rest and recuperation, Ryan, is a big thing in football now, isn't it? And sleeping at the right time, and not playing, and stuff like that, and doing the right things when you aren't playing. So I think players do have to be protected, because you can. The season lasts forever now, doesn't it? There'll be a couple of weeks when the teams are coming back in for their pre-season, and then before you know it, the Champions League qualifiers will start. We are heading to a year-round season, aren't they? It's never really going to stop. So you can understand players going into shutdown, football going into shutdown over these next couple of weeks because players need it, and 57 games is a lot. And then if you extend that, in terms of the Club World Cup, Club World Cup, and then you got World Cups, European Championships, sandwiched in between that is a heck of a lot of games for players, and it does take its toll on the body. I mean, Callum McGregor's played a ridiculous amount of football, hasn't he? And in the past few
without
years,
international football.
Yeah, and so he's one who would benefit from that, but he kept himself in great shape, throughout all of that time, just had the right attitude towards that, prepared himself to play 60 games a season, and but it is punishing and it can be grueling, and I think you have a duty of care to players now as well, in terms of this, and there are quite a lot. I've often said before that I think if you're going to lessen the fixtures, then maybe it's time to address the League Cup, because it serves no function other than as part of a treble, isn't it? Because there's no European spot for it. So I don't know if you maybe make the League Cup a competition for Celtic reserve team, if there's such a thing, or youth teams, something like that, and to give players a break in that sense. Once the European place was taken away for the League Cup winners, I felt that it lost its appeal and its prestige. And as I say, the only purpose that it serves is it's part of a domestic clean sweep, the first leg of a domestic clean sweep. But I think that's maybe something that could look at in the coming years, and maybe making it a tournament for Celtic youth players. That's just my thoughts, but I just find that would help alleviate the fixture congestion and too many games for players.
Yeah, as much as you want Celtic to win every trophy possible, I think everybody wants to see progression in Europe, and the way to do that is by rotating the squad, especially for games like that. If the fixture list allows, then people would want to see that rotation, because they want to see a strong squad. You want those players that maybe sitting on the bench, maybe away from the bench, can come in for those games without too much of a quality drop. Easier said than done. A couple more sort of news hits before we finish off today's morning briefing. It's absolutely flown by. I can't believe it's 28 minutes already on the show. Some really good news on Friday evening. Jeremy Frimpong made his move from Bayer Leverkusen to Liverpool. Official. I don't know if you've caught any of his interview, but he's not changed at all. His "oh my days" are still there. He's still absolutely, he's chomping at the bit to get involved with Liverpool. I think he's one of the real success stories of Celtic's recruitment in recent years, and it's great to see him at Liverpool, a massive club, and you think he'll really step into that role with ease, you would say.
Yeah, I think he'll push on, won't he? He was very popular, and just sad that he only stayed Celtic for a short period of time. But listen, you wish him all the best. Yeah, you wish him all the best, and charismatic as he was. And again, do you rule out somebody like Frimpong coming back, Ryan, later on, further down the line?
I do. I don't think we'll see Frimpong again, personally. We might see him when his legs have gone, but I don't see that happening for a wee bit. But then again, Frimpong without his legs seems like a bit half the player.
He enjoyed his time at Celtic. Yeah, I mean, listen, you don't know what the future holds, but I think he acknowledges that Celtic helped him get to that stage where he's at now. Virgil van Dijk has always extolled the virtues of Celtic, and saying that it was Celtic that helped him get to those levels. Andy Robertson, the same, as another one who wants to finish his career at Celtic. So I think players that play for only a short period of time and acknowledge that they enjoyed it, maybe feel that there's unfinished business at the club. I'm not saying that's going to be the case with Frimpong, but I certainly believe that he knows the important part that Celtic played in his career's trajectory, and it's great to see him getting that move to Liverpool, and let him go and show what he can do, and be good to see him on a regular basis.
Great to see him at Liverpool, but I think the main reason why a lot of people are happy is that Celtic are getting between 5 and 6 million because of that sell-on clause that they inserted, which was really good. And I think that actually accurately represents the value for money that Celtic got on the player, because I thought that they sold him a little bit cheap back in 2020, 21.
Yeah.
Obviously, Celtic were going through the lockdowns and COVID like every other team was, and it was a dreadful season. So Celtic needed to. Well, Frimpong wanted to make the move. Bayer Leverkusen were there; they were willing to take them off our hands, and Celtic got 11, 12 million for him at the time. But now that's rose to what, 17, 18 million. I think that's more of a better valuation of the player than what they sold him for. So I think they have got his true value just by that selling clause around about 30% of the profit.
Yeah, of course, and it was always going to bear fruit, wasn't it? Because he was a player who was on the rise, and it was just a question of how much. And bringing in 6 or 7 million without actually doing anything, it just shows that Celtic's player trading model is highly successful and it works, right?
Yep. A couple of final ones. Matt O'Reilly, a former Celtic player, is getting linked to Everton. Everton have got new American owners that are through the door, so could be some cash influx for them. That could be a decent move for a former player in Matt O'Reilly. It's been a stop-start season for him at Brighton, but potentially a bit of a refresh. If not at Brighton, then part of a new team. I know that Everton have lost a couple of players in the summer, a couple of players returning to their parent clubs after loan deals. Get Ducoré that's left the club. So there's an opportunity for a midfielder in Everton, and it's a passionate fan base. So it could be a good move for him if that one was to come to fruition.
Yeah, and also I would imagine Celtic will have some kind of sell-on clause there with Matt O'Reilly, so they'll get more money.
I would hope so.
Yeah, they'll get more money if Matt O'Reilly decides that his future's at Everton or Brighton decide to sell. So, well, whatever happens, I think Matt O'Reilly will make a move at some point. So, I think that'll be more money into Celtic's coffers, and it's just a joy to see these guys go on and fulfil their potential. Matt O'Reilly, as you say, has been a stop-start, but he got a terrible injury, didn't he, in his first game, and shocking challenge that was. But glad to see he's kind of, getting back to something like he was with Celtic, because he was fantastic when he left the club, and he left for the same amount of money as Kieran Tierney, that record fee of 25 million, rising to 30, I believe, at some point in the future if he plays a certain amount of games. So it's always a win-win for Celtic, that kind of thing, when they sell on players like that, of that quality and that calibre.
Yeah, and I think it's good for Celtic in the long run that players do well down south. Even Jeremy Frimpong, who used to play for Celtic, if he does well down south, then it'll convince other players to make that move to Celtic to potentially get to the Premier League, and for those players already at Celtic to make those moves and make Celtic profit at the end of the day. So I think it's a pretty good model at the moment. You want it to bear more fruit more often, but you see the examples of players like Matt O'Reilly, who did come from League One. We were talking about Harley Mills. He's in League One. So was Matt O'Reilly. So there's good players down there. Jeremy Frimpong was playing for the under-21s team for Manchester City. He came through and was straight in the first team within weeks. So there's players there in those lower leagues and those lower teams. You just need to find them, and hopefully Paul Tisdale and his scouting team can find those players in the summer. Tony, it's been an absolute pleasure being on the briefing once again with you today. Yeah. A big shout out once again to Seneca Medical Group, who are the #1 hair transplantation clinic in the UK. Give them a search, and we thank them for sponsoring us from now until the end of the 2025-26 season. Tony, is there any final thoughts before you head off this morning?
No, just glad to be back on the morning briefing with yourself. It's that's no slight on Hamish, because I always love being on with Hamish, but it just seems a kind of back to the future today. So I quite enjoyed that. All right, bud. Take care. Eh?
And thanks to each and every one of our subscribers, both on the website and on the YouTube page. If you want to subscribe, just press that button on the YouTube, and you'll be notified when we go live with morning briefings and different videos. If you want to subscribe to the website, go to www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. On there, we've got some really good interview pieces coming up, as well as analysis from the season and the latest transfer news surrounding the club you love, Celtic. Thank you very much to all of our commenters this morning. Sorry we couldn't get more of them up. It's been a good conversation this morning with yourself, Tony. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow at 10 a.m. to discuss everything going on with Celtic and surrounding the club. Until then, cheers, have a very good day, guys, and enjoy the rest of your day.